first practice in China ahead of Formula One's 1000th race on Sunday. Reflecting this milestone in racing history, many of the drivers were sporting commemorative designs on their helmets and liveries. Out on the Shanghai International Circuit, all eyes were once again on the silver and red cars. After promising so much in Bahrain, reliability issues had robbed Ferrari's Charles Leclerc of a maiden victory. The Monegasque driver didn't trouble the top of the timing chart early in the session, but with half an hour left, he put in his first representative times. Most interestingly of all perhaps, finishing close to the top on the medium tyre. It was his teammate Sebastian Vettel who logged the fastest lap with a time of 1 minute 33.911 seconds. With his session-topping time also being set on the medium tyre, there is a thought that this could be reflective of the pace Ferrari had shown in pre-season testing and delivered in Bahrain. Reigning world champion Lewis Hamilton was 0.2 back in P2, just slightly ahead of Leclerc in third. But the Mercedes man, along with championship leader Valtteri Bottas in P5 and almost half a second down on his teammates, were both on the soft tyre. Max Verstappen had a decent session. Shanghai suits the Red Bull cars. The team recorded their first F1 win here and took victory in last year's race. The Dutchman finished P4, around 0.4 back from Vettel, but almost a second faster than teammate Pierre Gasly in 7th, although the duo were running very different setups and were on different tyre compounds. The midfield remains tight. Daniel Ricciardo put in a decent stint to finish P6, running his Renault wide at turn 10 as he pushed to finish best of the rest. Racing Point are still learning about their 2019 car, as demonstrated by Lance Stroll's little pirouette at turn 14. However, the Canadian managed to finish inside the top 10 and well ahead of his teammate Sergio Perez. So Vettel top of the shop, followed by Hamilton, Leclerc, Verstappen and Bottas, all recording times in the 1 minute 34s. Danny Kvyat should feel pleased with his performance, a P8 for the Toro Rosso man. The Haas cars finished P10 and P11, Romain Grosjean besting Kevin Magnussen by just 100th of a second. The team had a dreadful race last time out, but post-Bahrain testing gave them clues as to a way forward. Nico Hülkenberg finished P12, 0.4 back from Renault teammate Ricciardo and just ahead of McLaren's Lando Norris, who continues to impress in his debut season. A mixed day for Alfa Romeo. Kimi Raikkonen's time of 1 minute 35.729 was enough for just P15, and teammate Antonio Giovinazzi managed just 2 laps, failing to set a time. That fact, at least, kept George Russell off the foot of the leaderboard. Second practice at the Shanghai International Circuit, and conditions had changed considerably. With temperatures dropping and the wind picking up, stability issues and tyre temperature proved cause for concern for many drivers. It was world champions Mercedes who gave the most visible early signs of the tricky conditions. Lewis Hamilton, getting on the throttle at turn 3, lost the back of his Silver Arrow, spinning and sliding backwards off the track. Valtteri Bottas suffered a similar fate, leaving the pit lane on the medium compound as the rear snapped around through the long right-hander. With no lasting damage done to either car, both were able to continue on their way, although neither looked to be immediately comfortable. It was Bottas, however, who was the first to get his groove back, setting the fastest lap of the session with a time of 1 minute 33.330 seconds. Still top of the Drivers' Championship thanks to that fastest lap extra point in Australia, the Finn appeared to gain a much better handle on the W10, and in particular its tyres, than his world champion teammate. Sebastian Vettel, having briefly led the timings early on, was just a hair's breadth behind Bottas in P2. The 4-time world champion couldn't better his early mark, finding himself in traffic late on following Racing Point's Sergio Perez.
I don't know what the Force India is doing.
Yeah, we are reporting it.
Well, you don't need to report, he can do what he wants, but it's just that they race harder on Friday than they do on Sunday.
Vettel's teammate Charles Leclerc found it impossible to get close in the afternoon after his session was cut short by a cooling system issue. The Monegasque driver sat out the final half an hour of the session, leaving Vettel to round off the team's practice programme. Haas were hoping to bounce back after recent disappointments, and with the midfield packed so tightly, tiny margins can make all the difference. However, both drivers had problems in the session. Pushing hard, Kevin Magnussen scraped the curbs at turn 10, scattering a few bits of his floor across the circuit. The Dane also narrowly avoided colliding with the Williams of Robert Kubica.
What the
Yeah, I saw it. Not good.
Romain Grosjean, meanwhile, suffered a broken front wing, the second time that's happened to him this season. Replay showed the car bouncing on a slightly bumpy section of track, but with no actual contact with the track surface, it appears the wing simply gave way. So Bottas fastest, just 0.02 of a second quicker than Vettel, with Red Bull's Max Verstappen P3, 0.2 off the pace, but very much in the mix. 5 different teams made up the top 6 places, with Renault's Nico Hülkenberg P5 and McLaren's Carlos Sainz taking 6th spot. Pierre Gasly was more than a second back from teammate Verstappen. Danny Kvyat needed a power unit change and missed the early part of the session, but once out on track he closely matched Toro Rosso teammate Alex Albon's times. Less than 1/100th of a second separated Racing Point's Lance Stroll and his teammate Sergio Perez. Having sat out the majority of the morning session, Alfa Romeo's Antonio Giovinazzi was the first driver out on track for FP2, keen to make up for lost time. However, the Italian could only manage P18. Williams once again make up the bottom 2 places. Final practice at the Shanghai International Circuit ended in dramatic fashion as Alexander Albon, pushing his Toro Rosso to the limit, went wide at the final turn, lost control, span through the gravel and collided heavily with the wall, ending the session and possibly his hopes of making qualifying for the Chinese Grand Prix. The start of the session was quite tranquil by comparison. After a mixed first 2 practice sessions yesterday, both Mercedes men seemed very relaxed. Current Drivers' Championship leader Valtteri Bottas enjoyed his morning pick-me-up, and defending champion Lewis Hamilton welcomed the early bird fans. It was once again Ferrari who set the early pace. Sebastian Vettel, top of the standings in FP1, setting a 1 minute 33.222 on the soft compound, 0.8 faster than similarly booted teammate Charles Leclerc. The Silver Arrows opted for mediums in their early ventures, both drivers 0.7 slower than Vettel, managing to split the Scuderia men. Bottas has said that, in his opinion, Ferrari are still faster in terms of straight-line speed, but that Mercedes can make the difference with their performance through the corners. With 10 minutes to go, the Flying Finn put that theory into practice, recording the first sub-1 minute 33 lap on the soft compound. Red Bull's Max Verstappen skipped the first half hour of the session, but when he ventured out on the soft compound, the Dutchman slipped into P5 on his first flying lap, some 0.3 back from Leclerc. He would finish P7 behind Renault's Nico Hülkenberg and Alfa Romeo's Kimi Raikkonen. Conversely, Verstappen's teammate Pierre Gasly still doesn't seem totally at home in his ride, almost a second back from Max Verstappen once again. The Alfa Romeo drivers had a little interaction during the session, with the Iceman seemingly unsure of Antonio Giovinazzi's intentions.
What was he doing? He almost hit me. Yeah. Okay. In the middle of the straight, I was on the left-hand side and he almost hit me on purpose.
So that early finish to FP3 left Bottas top of the shop for the second session in a row, over 0.3 faster than Vettel and Leclerc. Hamilton finished 0.8 back in P4, having failed to complete a clean flying lap. McLaren's Carlos Sainz bested his rookie teammate Lando Norris for the second session in a row, but both drivers remain firmly in the midfield mix. Despite that late crash for Albon, Toro Rosso had looked impressive, with both drivers making the top 10. Daniel Ricciardo had complained to his engineers during the session that his car seemed overreactive, which might go some way to explaining how the Australian was over a second slower than his Renault teammate, Nico Hülkenberg. Haas had another disappointing session, with Kevin Magnussen in P18, only slightly ahead of George Russell in the Williams.
Here's Robert Kubica, goes up only to 17th fastest. His teammate George Russell might replace him, but it'll be 1 spot still up for grabs in the relegation zone. Grosjean goes 6th fastest for Haas. Lando Norris was 12th fastest, crosses the line, and Lando Norris now down 13th fastest, on the cusp a little bit, didn't really improve there. Danny Kvyat in the Toro Rosso goes 8th fastest. We look to Daniel Ricciardo next to cross the line, goes 7th fastest. Kimi Raikkonen is right on the cusp, down with Lance Stroll here. Those two could be battling it out as Charles Leclerc goes 2nd fastest.
He still didn't beat the Mercedes.
Raikkonen only 13th fastest, pushes Perez down into trouble, and his teammate Lance Stroll next to cross the line. Stroll is out in qualifying once again. That's the 7th time in a row he's been knocked out in Q1. George Russell next to cross the line and goes ahead of his teammate Robert Kubica. Perez goes 11th fastest. Lando Norris is right on the cusp, but will be safe as Pierre Gasly goes 11th fastest. Norris is through into Q2. Giovinazzi out, and joining him, Alex Albon, who didn't take part, Robert Kubica, George Russell, Lance Stroll, who did. We need to see if Kimi can improve from 13th, and where does he go? 10th, right
through.
on it. Valtteri has crossed the line.
He's backed off though.
And backed off because he does want to start on that soft tyre. Lando Norris going very wide at the final corner. That certainly won't help his speed. He's out of qualifying and stays, I should say, 14th. Danny Kvyat into the top 10, pushes Hulkenberg out of it. Carlos Sainz next across the line, only 11th, but ahead of Nico Hulkenberg. Kevin Magnussen goes 7th. It's Q3 in top 10 for him. Daniel Ricciardo goes 8th fastest as he crosses the line. Grosjean is out there and goes 8th fastest, pushes Raikkonen out of the top 10 right at the last. Sergio Perez now next across the line in the Racing Point. Can he make it into Q3? No, misses out by 6/100ths of a second. Nico Hulkenberg next across the line. He goes 7th fastest, pushes Kvyat out of the top 10. Sebastian Vettel is slowing down. He's already in the top 10. Lewis Hamilton giving it all as he goes to the line and goes quickest overall with a 1:31.6.
Yeah, we lost on the straight more than a 10.
I was just looking at that here. I don't know what happened yet. Come back to you.
Bottas is faster in both the sectors so far by 0.3 of a second. Plenty of throttle on the exit, as right as you can get. Hamilton then at 31.5. What can Bottas do in reply to that? What can Ferrari do in reply to that?
Here comes Valtteri Bottas then round the final corner. He's been the lead Mercedes for the majority of this weekend. DRS is wide open, crosses the line, goes fastest onto provisional pole by 7 milliseconds, ladies and gentlemen. Max Verstappen next to cross the line, goes 3rd fastest, half a second down on the 2 Mercedes. Hulkenberg ahead of Ricciardo at Renault. He's been on the new tyres and Ricciardo on the used tyres as Gasly goes 4th fastest behind his teammate once again. Crossing the line, Charles Leclerc is only 4th fastest. Sebastian Vettel only 3rd fastest. It's a Mercedes front row lockout and the 2 drivers separated by almost nothing. So, Ferrari with a speed advantage down the straights can still come back at Mercedes here. It might not be the Silver Arrows on pole or on the front row this weekend. Can Lewis Hamilton, though, get a 7th pole here in Shanghai? Rounds the final corner, crosses the line now, and Hamilton has missed out by 6/100ths of a second. Can Bottas go faster? He does, but only by 100th of a second. Charles Leclerc next across the line, only 3rd fastest, lost out in the final sector. Here comes Sebastian Vettel, only 3rd fastest. Valtteri Bottas will start the 1000th Formula One World Championship race on pole position, and he's beaten his teammate Lewis Hamilton by mere hundredths of a second. The championship leader heads the field for F1000.
And that's pole position, Valtteri. Well done.
That's what I like to hear, guys. Well done, guys.
Yeah, let's make sure we finish the job tomorrow.
So this was the beginning of the lap here, Crofty. This is on board with Vettel. As I said, he was in the worst position and got in all sorts of mess. Must have been Verstappen, I think. Yeah, it was. So we're on board with Max here, and he's keeping an eye. So he's taking the normal line. Look to your left, and here comes...
Mate, you need to go now.
Nah, mate. I'm finished, right?
We are finished.
Yeah, they're such, honestly, everybody's just lining up and they're just it up. You're just trying to be nice, but everybody's just it up.
It's a 59th front row lockout for Mercedes-Benz, 3 behind the all-time record that currently McLaren, Williams and Ferrari hold. And it's the first time that Bottas has been ahead of Lewis Hamilton in qualifying since he took pole in Russia last season.
And that's pole position, Valtteri. Well done.
That's what I like to hear, guys. Well done, guys.
It is F1000, and it's lights out, and away we go. Bottas ahead of Hamilton, who got away well. Hamilton scoots past Bottas on the inside. Vettel challenging on the outside. Charles Leclerc goes on the inside of Vettel. Hamilton leads Bottas, leads Leclerc, leads Vettel, leads Verstappen, and round the outside of Pierre Gasly comes Daniel Ricciardo in the Renault. But what a great start for Lewis Hamilton. For the first time this season, he's beaten his teammate off the line.
Well, it's a real Noah's Ark grid, wasn't it? 2 by 2 with the teams all the way through the top 10. And they've somehow managed to not connect with each other as they head down into turn 6. Great driving.
Sergio Perez very late on the brakes, gets ahead of Nico Hülkenberg in the Renault, and Kvyat's gone into Norris, and they're out of the race, and Sainz has picked up damage as well. This is what it looked like on board Lando Norris's McLaren, and you probably just lifted off the sofa in unison with the McLaren doing a little bunny hop there. Two Hasses running side by side, and then Danny Kvyat into Sainz, into Norris. Ouch.
Let Sebastian by, let Sebastian by.
But I'm pulling now, I'm pulling away.
That message might be a little old. He's letting Sebastian Vettel past. Vettel moves up into third place. Charles Leclerc obeys team orders, and Sebastian Vettel is now released to get after Valtteri Bottas and try and reduce the deficit that has grown to about 3.5 seconds in the opening 10 laps of this race. And we're seeing Hülkenberg come in again. This is not a scheduled pit stop, and what looks there, Martin, like another mechanical failure for Nico Hülkenberg. It's Honda power against Ferrari power, and it's DRS assisted now for Max Verstappen. And the wing wide open at the back. Can he get anywhere close? We've seen them come together last year as Verstappen dived down the inside. He's going for it again. He locks up, gets ahead of Vettel. Vettel tries to fight it back again, and he gets pushed wide. Max Verstappen into the dirt on the inside. Verstappen can't get ahead of Sebastian Vettel.
Vettel entitled to take the racing line on the inside. Verstappen running out of space on the outside of the track. It was a lunge, but it was under control, but he couldn't quite. As he put some lock into the steering wheel, the inside tyre unloaded, and there it is, just coming back at him. Brilliant. Good driving from the pair of them.
Absolutely brilliant. Kevin Magnussen ahead of Kimi Räikkönen. Räikkönen's going to try around the outside at the hairpin at turn 6, then switch back to the inside and get on the gas a little bit more cleanly. Has he got ahead of Kevin Magnussen? Yes, he has. Alex Albon had a big crash in FP3 and is making his way up the field and making up for lost time in the race itself. Has just got past Antonio Giovinazzi. He's got pace, that Toro Rosso. Real shame he couldn't take part in qualifying, because it was looking like a contender for the top 10. There goes Kimi Räikkönen. I don't know if he's going to the motor show or not, but he's certainly going to get past Romain Grosjean here. Grosjean tries to fight it, will carry on trying to fight it, but can't fight it any longer. Räikkönen is far enough ahead to take 9th place. And this is the double stack stop for the Mercedes team. Medium tyres going on for Lewis Hamilton. Just when one went out, the other one's ready to come back in again. It was like a production line. Now there goes Valtteri Bottas then, started on pole in this race. He's been playing second fiddle to his teammate Lewis Hamilton ever since the start, and he's back ahead of Charles Leclerc, so goes back into second place in this race. Danny Kvyat is out of this race, banged into 2 McLarens at the start. Danny Kvyat's quite miserable Chinese Grand Prix comes to an end on lap 43.
Lando Norris's hellish, I think we can call it, first Chinese Grand Prix ends in retirement.
Joins Danny Kvyat and Nico Hülkenberg as retiring from this race. Lewis Hamilton on his way to a 6th Chinese Grand Prix victory. It's pretty much 6 of the best for Lewis Hamilton. Alain Prost waves the checkered flag. A 4-time world champion acknowledges a 5-time world champion winning the Chinese Grand Prix. What a start to the season it has been for Mercedes.
Get in there, Lewis. Super strong start, super strong pace. So Lewis, that's win number 75.
Awesome job, guys. What a fantastic result for us today. I'm so proud of everyone. Thank you so much for all the hard, continued work. Let's keep pushing, guys. I really appreciate you.
Smiles and celebrations, not for Ferrari and Sebastian Vettel, but for another 1-2. Their third 1-2 in 3 races in 2019. What a hat-trick to start this year off. There's a long way to go, but Mercedes already beating their goals. Victory today, second place as well. They lead the Drivers' and the Constructors' Championship.